We are live and we are glad to be here. Kenny Harper of Growth Amplifiers and
Manny Torres.
we're all about taking some action. We've got some cool stuff that we're going to be sharing with you to revolutionize your client strategy. We want to go beyond the price wars. So we're going to be talking about why competing on price is, although very common, we're going to talk about a simple strategy to avoid competing on price. If you're going to compete on price, unless you're Walmart, you're probably going to lose. It's a losing game. Don't compete on price. Don't feel like you've got to lower your price. Instead, provide more value. We're going to talk about that. Another thing we're going to talk about is what most people get wrong when it comes to their marketing message that ends up costing them thousands of dollars, whether that's they're putting their time or their team's time or they're spending money hiring other people to do it. If you don't have the right message, it's not going to resonate. It's not going to hit the nail on the head. So you want to avoid that. Last but not least, we're going to talk about some easy and creative ideas to stick out in a saturated market so that when you do put your marketing message out there, it gets attention. It turns a look into a stare. And so we're going to share some ideas there. So we've got a lot of great stuff to get to today. We want this to be actionable so you can take new actions and achieve new results. Manny, what's on your mind today?
Well, I'm excited to talk about this because it's on the mind of a lot of people. They feel like they can't grow because there's just too much work and effort that's going into it. They don't feel like they have enough hours to add new clients. But the stuff that we're going to talk about today is going to make it easier for these businesses to scale. So I'm excited.
All right. So if you haven't done so already, make sure that you are following Growth Amplifiers on our YouTube channel. We have some great content we're putting out there. We also have a podcast. We're putting great content out there. And we want to make sure that we're sharing these actionable insights so you can amplify your business. And go to growthamplifiers.com/connect and you can follow us in the way that would be most applicable to you. Now, to get us started off, meaning we're going to talk about avoiding competing on price. There is that pricing pressure. We want to be competitive in the market, but if we're competing on price, we're actually lowering our perceived value and we're lowering our profitability. And even if money isn't your driver, you need money in order to keep your business going. You need money in order to add value to things that you care about. So we've got a highlight from one of the recent videos. If we could cue up the video and we'll start there, and then we'll chat a little bit more about some actionable insights and takeaways.
Right.
As people say what they want, you write down what they want, you give them a price. A lot of times people used to do billing by hours, then they kind of standardize their packages, and people are paying for a lot of hours or a package of services. However, what they ultimately are investing in is the transformation that you can provide them. If you can help someone get a return on investment, if you can help them change what is happening in their business, get rid of the challenges that are holding them back, step into the transformation that they'd like to see, then you can help be the change that they need to take their business to the next level. It's positioning yourself not as a service provider, but as someone who cultivates transformation, the coach or advisor that cultivates the transformation that they're looking for. It makes all the difference in the world. When people are competing on price, a lot of times it's a lack of perceived value. They just are. How far are you going in this video?
I was going to stop right about there because I wanted to really cue in on that perceived value, because that is something that a lot of people miss. They think that they're just selling the same thing as other people, but if they can position it in a better way so that they're sharing all the different value that they're impacting into that can really start to elevate their service in the eyes of their client there.
So I was actually chatting with a client, the new client in this last couple months, who has been trying to increase the money that they're making. And they have a small practice. It's them and a couple of team members. And the challenge that they were having is they're more of a consultant and they provide value, but they have been kind of like trading their time for a fee. What's the challenge with that?
There's only so much time that you have.
Right. If you're trading your time for money, There's only so much time you have. So you run into a bottleneck there. And the other thing is, if you're positioning yourself, right, from trading time for money, then people are thinking about, I'm going to spend how much per hour, right? Spend how much per hour. They're thinking of the wrong thing. It looks like a high expense if you're focused on how much you're paying per hour. What, 250, 300, $500 an hour? That's a lot. We want to shift the focus. That's what we were talking about in that video. We want to focus on the transformation. What are the challenges that they're having? What is the impact of those challenges? It could be tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars, millions of dollars for some companies if they don't resolve those gaps in their business. If they don't resolve those challenges that are holding them back, it's going to cost them above and beyond what they may be investing in that transformation. It's an investment when it's done properly, but it's all about positioning, and it's really important. I mean, you had an example that from some that you were talking about that you wanted to share as well.
Yeah, and I see this a lot as people that are well versed in whatever we do. We take for granted how much time, years of knowledge and learning it takes to get to the point where we're at. And since we feel like we can do it pretty easily, a lot of times we don't value that. But when you talk to someone that's in a different area of expertise than you're in amazement of what they know. So I was talking to someone that does tax planning for people that work with real estate investments, with flipping houses, and he's just rattling stuff off left and right of how he can save people money, different strategies that he uses. And these are things that come to him very easily. But at the same time, I don't think he realizes how much value that can provide to that real estate investor, because if he's saving them tens of thousands of dollars in taxes on one property and they have multiple properties, that adds up very quickly. And, it took him a long time to be able to get to that point. He also does a lot of continuing education where each year he's looking at the tax code, especially in years like this where there's election, there's changes in terms of what those tax codes are. So that's a ton of value. And it can provide a transformation for his clients, because the difference in amount of take-home money that they have that they can now reapply into new investments becomes a multiplier in their business.
Yes, I've done some quick math, and I know we've probably invested over $100,000 in education over the years, a couple decades worth of trial and error, making mistakes, learning from that. And we're able to accomplish a lot more in a lot less time and get better results than someone who might be able to do things on the cheap. It's the old saying, you get what you pay for a lot of the times. So to kind of make sure that you're avoiding that, we're focusing on the transformation that you provide. You're focusing on someone's return on investment when you're offering your services. You don't want to focus on time. You don't want to focus on the checkbox of things that you're going to do. You want to focus on the results that you provide and the impact that will have on the bottom line. All right, so we're going to move on to our next segment. We're talking about client attraction, and is your client roster holding you back? And this is, you got another clip we could pull up and we could kind of start off there. Connected with a CPA that had been providing tax services. She did a lot of tax prep. She wanted to do more tax planning. We looked at her client roster, and she had a majority of her business coming from a handful of accounts. And she put a lot of time and energy into these low tier accounts that really weren't providing a lot of value, and were taking more of her time chasing around to get all of their forms, and we're kind of draining her and overwhelming her. I said, well, wouldn't it be great if you could multiply your better customers, your A clients, and have clients that paid you, that referred you, that would follow your instructions? She said, that would be amazing, but I don't know how to get them. I said, well,
yeah. So the thing that I take away from that segment there is, you've got these roster of clients, and we all have this dream that we have when we start our business, where we have this wonderful, idea of what it's going to be like. And then we start working. And then what ends up happening is you start taking on things to grow the business. And sometimes you take on things that you wouldn't normally take on if you had better clients. But the thing is, it's your business, it's your dream. You can design it the way you want. But what we see a lot of times is that businesses have a roster full of clients that aren't necessarily who they want to work with. And I think that's a place that they can really improve it.
And when we're talking about ranking clients, we're not talking about ranking people. We don't rank people. People are good. Everyone's good. That's debatable. But when you talk about clients, there's your ideal clients that they energize you, you get along with, they pay you on time, they pay you well, they're coachable, they're getting results. Then you have some clients that they're pretty good, they're in the middle, and then you have some that are paying late, they're always complaining, they're causing challenges, and they just can be draining. And like you said, sometimes you referred someone, sometimes you take on a client and they start off good and then they start fading, or you didn't realize all the baggage that they'd be having. And I know this. Some people need to hear this. It is okay. And it is probably your duty to let go of clients that are not a good fit, because it's not probably helping them. They could probably find a better fit elsewhere. If they're draining you, you're probably not giving them your best effort. And ultimately, it's the cost of opportunity, right? So if you're spending your time dealing with those challenging clients that maybe aren't even that great of paying, then you're not putting the time to your higher paying clients or finding more ideal clients. So it's really important when we're talking about making sure we're attracting more clients is, number one, you've got to know who your ideal clients are. Who are they? And don't be afraid to say, hey, I can work with all different types of clients, but I can only focus on putting out a marketing message towards one at a time. And we're going to talk about marketing messages in a minute. But for right now, Manny, what are your thoughts on this topic?
Yeah, definitely. And the differentiation and a lot of these topics that we're talking about in the different videos all go together. And that's why we're talking about them today together. But when you talked about knowing your ideal client, it's really taking that inventory of not only the money, as you mentioned, but how you enjoy working with them, what different personality types, what are things outside of business that they have in common, because those are going to be things that are going to help you identify where to find more like them. But it also makes doing business fun and enjoyable. And I think a lot of times we overlook that portion of it. We're so focused on just the business aspects, but we forget that business is person to person, human to human. And the more that you can look at those human aspects and say, do I really enjoy being around this person? Is it someone that I could see myself hanging out with, after work, on a weekend, at an event? Because that's going to make it that much easier to build that relationship and also be able to grow and evolve with them.
And listening to your team too, because if your team's dreading working with someone, it's like they have these bad clients that they're frustrated with, that's just draining the life out of them. You'd want to be able to identify that and say, hey, look, maybe this is not helping us. Because if you lose your team because they don't enjoy their job, or maybe they're just turning down their volume because they're not enjoying the people that they're working with, then that can be a detractor as well. And we're a big fan of working with people that have a niche. We've got some great clients that we've worked with through the years. Mr. Eric Liebenhagen, he's a profit first professional, mastery level, works with a lot of optometrists. He's able to really optimize how he communicates to them, provide them with a unique expertise. It's really cool to see. And because he's sharpened his message and now he's launched his own podcast and YouTube channels, now he has opportunities coming to him and he's attracting them.
Yeah, I wanted to mention too with that, a lot of times the ways that you can align with people that are your clients is to like bring in things that are tied into your history, thing that you've experienced. So like Nathan Hirsch, he's built a lot of e-commerce businesses. He has a lot of alignment in that industry. And so when he launched his bookkeeping company, he saw that as a natural niche that he could go after because he could speak their language. So having those alignments where you can speak the language of who you're working with, you see what their challenges are, where they're trying to go, that helps make those conversations easier. And it also makes it enjoyable because you don't feel like you're speaking a different language than them.
All right. So now the last thing that we're kind of like focusing on in this segment is about differentiation, because we do want to get working with our ideal clients. We want to work with our ideal clients that energize us, but there are other people that might want to work with those ideal clients. And there's a lot of noise out there. It's very saturated. So we've got to, if we're going to take the time to put out a marketing message to connect with people, we've got to do something that's going to turn a look into a stare. We got to do something that's going to differentiate us so people can see us in that crowded field. So we've got one more clip. Unless you want to be competing on price, unless you want to be lost in the sea of same, you've got to do something to stand out, to be different, to have an edge. Many businesses think, if I put my name out there, if I say we have good customer service, if I post on social media and have a pulse, people will see me and they'll do business with me. And the thing is, you still can gain some business that way because you're going to have some word of mouth. That word of mouth is going to get out there. You might get some referrals, but chances are you're going to get probably lower tiered referrals. That's what typically happens. People will be like, oh, my cousin Sally needs some help. And they refer cousin Sally. Cousin Sally's not bad or anything, but she's not an ideal customer. If you want to get ideal customers, if you want to stand out from the pack, if you want to be the go-to expert in your industry, you've got to differentiate. So we're talking about differentiation, and I just was chatting with some clients over the past week, and the thing that was cool is Barbara Stackhouse. She was on Growth Amplifier's podcast. She is also a profit first professional, and her expertise is working with the dental community, with dentists. And April Stroink has been partnering with her. She's in Canada, and she's been focusing on the experience. And one of the things that she's doing that's really been interesting is she's sending lobster to people that she's trying to get on their radar, get an impression. So it's like really doing something that's outside the box, not just hoping it's going to be this interesting social post, but creating an experience, getting off the radar, trying more direct marketing approaches to get that message in front of your ideal customers.
It's funny you mentioned outside the box. When you said that, I thought of the Ultimate Sales Letter, and Russell Brunson, who a lot of people know, was trying to speak on Tony Robbins' stages. And so he was courting him. And as you might imagine, Tony Robbins has people courting him all the time, right? Mm-hmm. So one of the things that Russell did was send something like 50 pizzas to Tony Robbins at an event, which obviously would draw your attention. So he's thinking inside the box with pizza and outside the box in terms of how do you get that attention and stand out and be able to get that little bit of time with someone so that you can go ahead and share that message of value that you can bring them.
And if you're thinking sending lobsters or pizza isn't on your radar, we also have sent out even just something that's simple. We've got magazines and playbooks that we've mailed to prospects that aren't promotional. They're not sales pieces. So if you look at them as sales pieces, people are like, nah. But if you send something of value to people that is interesting, speaks their language, and provides value to their life, then they're more likely to look at it. You're getting their attention. We also like doing direct response online, connecting with people. If you're just posting content on your social channels, you're not advertising, chances are most time your ideal customers aren't necessarily looking. So you want to send them a message that gets their attention and differentiates. Doing something that's a little bit different, doing something that's going to stand out from what everyone else is doing.
Speaking of standing out, I wanted to share another example, and this person stands out in a couple ways. Kenny, I think you remember back when we went to the very first Scaling New Heights. I think it was in the pandemic year, and it was a smaller group, but there was still a lot of new people that we didn't know. And when we were there, we saw someone go by that really stood out, and I want to share her, but she stands out for a couple different reasons, and I'm sure there's even more that I don't know about. But this is Vanessa Vasquez, right? So she has a beautiful brand, and she is very expressive. And as you can see, she stands out. And especially at a conference of accounting professionals, she was very unique, and she draws attention. And not only does she draw attention because of that, but she is also a rock star in terms of how she is able to run it and grow her business. So she focuses on the Hispanic market, which is another way that she differentiates. So you can imagine if you're in a conference of a lot of different accounting professionals, if you're just like, I do accounting services or I do bookkeeping, most people aren't going to remember you and they're not going to know how to refer you. But if you say, I work with the Hispanic market, teaching them how to leverage QuickBooks or how to do accounting, now you become someone that's easy to refer. So kudos for Vanessa for really stepping out and really owning who she is and being able to jump into that way of differentiating herself and her business.
All right. Well, thank you, Manny, for sharing that. And as a recap, when we're looking to price and put offers out, we don't want to focus on our time or checking the box. We want to focus on transformation and really look at the big picture of the value that you're providing. When we're talking about attracting the right clients, you got to know who the right clients are and put out a message that's going to help resolve their challenges or get and achieve the things that they want. And then you want to make sure that when you're trying approaches to get their attention, you're doing something that's going to be different. It's not just doing the same thing everyone else is doing. You got to do something that's going to stand out. We love doing strategies like that. It's one of the favorite things that we do. So if you haven't done so already, again, follow us on YouTube. We have a channel that we're working on. We have a podcast. We have events coming up all the time where we gather people who are looking to amplify their business. Sometimes it's marketing, sometimes it's sales, sometimes it's strategy and execution. So if you have questions, make sure to put them in the comments. We'd love to see what your thoughts are. If you have anything to share, be the amplifier, share your voice.
And I'm excited. In 2 weeks from now, we're going to have our next session and we're going to be talking about how to empower your team. So Kenny, I know we've got some cool things to talk about there. So thank you everyone for joining us, and make sure that you share and share this resource with others so that you can be an amplifier as well.
All right, y'all. Thank you so much.